Thank you, Frank. First of all, I'd like to thank DG Agri and the EIB and the FICompass team for inviting me here today to give a presentation on financial instruments and specifically on MilkFlex and our story. As Cathy mentioned, my name is Cathal Fitzgerald. I'm the Head of Food and Agriculture Investments at the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund, and just a little bit about the fund, just by way of background, which is relevant. We're a sovereign development fund. We were a sovereign wealth fund, but post or during the crisis, a decision was taken by our government to devote or to change the mandate to invest on commercial terms. We always invest on commercial terms, but to add an economic impact mandate to our investment criteria, which meant our focus from being a fund of funds mainly focused internationally, we were focused back in Ireland, and that's very relevant to the story here today. And as part of that, and as part of my role in looking at the food and agriculture sector in Ireland, which is very important in the Irish context, we try and create financial instruments ourselves, whether we can partner with commercial banks or, in the case Rural Development Fund, we'll partner with anyone that makes the fund relevant or makes it competitive. So we see financial instruments a very important role to play in agriculture, and we'll play whatever role we need to play within the fund in order to make it happen, and we like to crowd in investment. The overall target for our fund is about 2 times. So we try and crowd in as much money as we invest in a project, and in lots of cases, and I'll show you some examples here, we crowd in a lot more. So in lots of ways we approach it similar to the way in which you've heard the Commissioner and Vice President speak about financial instruments this morning. What I'll talk about here today is specifically about MilkFlex and how we approach that. But in terms of financial instruments, the way we look at on financial instruments is to create a financial product that supports the development of strategic sectors in Ireland to make them more profitable, make them more robust, and obviously dairy is one of those. We try and ensure it's a partnership approach, partnership with other financial players, industry players, because that de-risks your proposition, and it helps you understand the risks better when you have an industry player or an established, and Frank mentioned earlier, to try and leverage existing products or existing institutions as much as they can. We're a sovereign wealth fund. We don't have the full breadth and range of expertise that let's say some of the banks would have or some of the players. But above all, it must meet market requirements. And we are focused on innovation. We're focused on looking at what does the market need today in order to support the future development of the market. And that's kind of a different way of looking at a gap. When we look at a gap analysis, we're kind of looking, was there something there and is it gone? And you need to put that back. But we're looking at what are the future requirements. And that runs to the heart of the MilkFlex fund, as you'll see later. The future requirements are for more volatility proofing in loan repayments. That wasn't a feature in the past. Pre-cap deregulation in 2006-2007, volatility wasn't as big a feature, so those products weren't really needed. But post that, they are needed, and as we've seen. Just, I suppose, by way of background to MilkFlex, I'll just kind of paint the scenario of how we approach it, which kind of may give you some better context. I suppose in broad terms, food demand around the world is underpinned by strong fundamentals, and we've all seen the chart of the population growth and urbanisation and so forth. Dairy demand within that, again, is showing great underlying fundamentals, with big increases forecast in Asia, in a region that are finding it difficult to produce their own dairy products. A lot of that will come from the developed nations, from Europe in particular, and Ireland, and will benefit from that along with a lot of other European countries. Ireland is well positioned within that. We're a grass-based production system. We have a very ambitious growth-orientated industry. It's co-op dominated, which is important, and it's underpinned by a government strategy. We have a low-cost production system, mild climate, and most of the diet that the dairy herd uses is grass, which is a lower cost. Comparing our cost to other nations, we are at the lower end of the cost spectrum. So good and very good welfare standards mentioned earlier. Welfare standards are very, very high, and in this programme, any farmer signing up to the MilkFlex fund must also comply with the sustainability programme that the Co-op has launched and endorsed, and that's a key factor. Any farmers that won't qualify for the fund. We have a well-developed processing sector in Ireland, some household names there and some very strong companies there. So, to my earlier point, we try and support sectors that have a strategic strength and future going forward. And final point on that, the dairy industry in Ireland is developing up the value chain over the last 10 years. Infant formula, base infant formula exports have increased 45%, but values increased 95%. Evidence in the fact we're moving up the value chain as a country. Or as an industry. The funding landscape, however, some interesting stats. We're very lowly leveraged in general across when you compare to our peers. Liabilities, values per farm, very, very low. Liability asset ratio is very, very low. Liquidity ratio very favourable. Yet our credit spreads were widening throughout the crisis, even when other countries who were as adversely affected by the crisis were their credit spreads were coming in. Ours were widening, which is counterintuitive to what I've said earlier, which shows there is something in the marketplace not fully functioning, and this is what we sought to address, as well as incorporate some innovation features. And so this was our kind of score sheet assessment of what was the status of the market, and this came from the ground up. It came from farmers to co-ops, back up to us. It was the feedback that we were getting. Yes, there was funding in the market, but the type of funding that was available, it was felt it wasn't suitable for the growth ambitions, and bearing in mind that quotas had been released, or quotas had been relaxed, and therefore the expansion possibility was there. Therefore, the funding and the appropriate funding was a critical factor for the industry, because the industry itself had invested heavily in new processing capability, and they wanted to make sure that the dairy industry, the farmers, were going to expand. So duration was an issue. The interest rate was also came out as an issue. Security, and it was mentioned earlier, that was deemed to be a prohibiting factor, particularly for young farmers entering. They needed a security, and that was an impediment. And we also ourselves questioned the value of the security. Sometimes if you're involved in collateral-based lending as opposed to the cash flow-based lending, then it's probably not the appropriate way of assessing the loan. So we felt it was necessary to look at that. We felt that the repayment schedule needed to flex with milk prices. We did our economic model to show what an efficient farmer, what prices they needed at the various points, and below which they needed to be protected. And you'll see later, 26 cents a litre was deemed a trigger point. Below that, repayments would shut off. You needed an efficient administration process. So the X's were the ones we felt weren't in the marketplace, and these were the features we brought forward into the design of the product. I mentioned earlier collaboration and partnership. It's a key part of developing any financial instrument, and it runs to the heart of de-risking your proposition and making sure that your funders remain comfortable, and you want to build a model that's robust and sustainable into the future, that it doesn't run into trouble when the next crisis hits. So we partner with Glanbia, who are the biggest dairy processor in Ireland, close to 30% of the market in Ireland. Rabobank, who I'm sure you're all familiar with, very, very strong agri-bank. Ourselves, the Strategic Investment Fund. And the distribution platform, we felt we needed to create a new distribution platform because over the crisis period, a number of players had exited the Irish market. We had two notable agri-lenders leave the market, and we felt we needed to reinstate another agri-lender. So we partnered with an existing fund, and part of that partnership, the agreement was that they would bring on board an agri-lending team, which they have brought on board, and a very good team. And effectively, this project has also launched a new agri-lender into the marketplace. So, in summary, this is the summary of the. Sorry, I'll just some brief. On the funding side of the project, on the equity in the overall fund, ourselves and Glanbia are contributing the equity, and a small piece from the fund manager, Finance Ireland, 5% for regulatory purposes, and then on the debt side, ourselves, Strategic Investment Fund, and Rabobank are sharing the funding on the debt, along with Finance Ireland also have some investment in that. The features of the fund, as I mentioned, we have flex trigger points above 34 cents a litre. Payments are accelerated. That's all written into the contract. It's guaranteed. Below 28 cents for 3 months, they're reduced by 50%, and below 26 cents, payments are shut off for a 6-month period. On the right-hand side, the graph, the payments are only taken from March until October, and then there's no payments because Ireland has a cyclical production curve, so milk is produced over those months and then cows are dried off. The loan period is 8 years, but with the flexes and when payments are shut off, it can extend out to 10 years. And also the security, we don't look for collateral as security, we look for a first charge on milk payments from the farmer. We feel that's actually a better form of security, because in order for a farmer to default, he must go out of milk production. So it's actually much better than having collateral as security. And our underwriting criteria will guide us to farmers who have good businesses and good business plans. There's also a feature in there for new entrants, because we don't have the collateral requirements. It makes it easier for them, but there's an amount carved out specifically for new entrants within that. So and this is a summary of the features that I mentioned there, and we have an efficient loan approval process and also collection mechanism, and I've covered pretty much most of those. There's a loan setup cost of 1.25%. The amounts of the loans from 25,000 up to 300,000. Just in terms of risk, and that's a key part of any, in our journey through constructing this particular instrument, it's a key feature, because you're trying to convince banks like Rabobank, who have very thorough and strict underwriting criteria. Your own risk assessment is critical, and we did our risk assessment on the various aspects that could happen to this fund, and we've detailed out how we've covered those off in the structure of the financial instrument. And there's more detail in the appendices. You can see exactly how we've done, but we have covered off all of those to the satisfaction of the board. But that's an essential part of the construction of your instrument. When you do that, it enables you construct and manage a financial instrument in a better way. So where are we? MilkFlex is recognised as the leading product to fund dairy expansion. The banks have responded as we expected they would, but they haven't been able to replicate the fund. It's a compliment to us that the banks did respond. They have brought out programs with a couple of co-ops, but as I said, they haven't been able to replicate it. This is by far the best product for an expanding dairy farmer. I didn't mention the price earlier. The price was set at 3.75% for an unsecured loan. That is way ahead of the marketplace, certainly by 2 percentage points. Our next step plan is to, as the Glanbia Fund was a pilot, we're now going to roll that out across the industry, and we're working on taking the learnings from the initial pilot, which is the purpose of a pilot, to work out a structure where we can try and incorporate more co-ops in the one fund the next time, rather than have an individual fund per co-op. But it has been a good experience. The fact that the other banks have moved has validated the reason why we did it in the first place, for the reason I mentioned earlier in terms of the credit spreads being going the wrong direction. I think this is my final slides. And just in general on financial instruments, it doesn't stop there for us. As I said, we're a strategic investment fund focused on agriculture. Financial instrument is one leg of what we like to do. We have a pipeline of other initiatives that we are working on. We've one farmer receivable structure, which provides incremental non-recourse funding to the co-ops. And this is an interesting structure. It's taken us quite a long time to finalise it, but the leverage multiple we get, it was mentioned earlier about leverage multiples. In this case here, we get 10 times, in excess of 10 times our funding. And in essence, what we're doing is we're buying farmer debts from co-ops, securitising them. We've analysed the risk, we've insured a large part of the risk, and then ISIF, we put in a certain amount of capital to cover the residual risk to enable bank funders to come in and fund, and the two bank funders are one domestic Irish bank and Rabobank, to come in and fund the loan book. So it's a case again where we partner with existing funders, but the wrapper structure allows us only use a small piece of capital. It could be from 5 to 10% that we need, but it's an essential 5 to 10% to allow the other fund coming through. We're looking at the poultry sector, similar structure to MilkFlex, but it'll be different, but kind of concepts brought across. A commodity hedging structure to look at just true volatility on the food investment side, on the corporate side, and forestry is a key area that we've been working on for the last 2 years. We'd hope to have some announcements on that in the near future, and even beyond those announcements we'll continue to work on forestry because it's a key strategic one for Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you very much.